Right in the heart of East Africa lies a lush paradise, a fertile land of diverse landscapes and breathtaking beauty. With its spectacular mountain ranges and immense lakes, thick forests and vast savannas, Uganda is hands down one of the most incredible places I've visited. When earlier this year my friend Claudia and I told people that we had decided to visit this landlocked country in Equatorial Africa, we received many puzzled looks in return. Despite getting roughly the same number of visitors as Tanzania or Kenya, for some reason Uganda seems to be a place that people know very little about. It's too bad really, because this is an amazing country, which Winston Churchill used to call the Pearl of Africa. When it comes to wildlife, Uganda doesn't have the same abundance of its neighbors. But what its national parks lack in quantity, they more than make up for in variety. Our first encounter with Ugandan wildlife is the Mabamba swamp, which we visit fresh off the plane. Located just 1 hour west of Entebbe, on the northern edge of Lake Victoria, this wetland is an oasis for some 300 bird species. Armed with their Canon-sized lenses, birdwatchers flock here, pun intended, to spot, among many others, kingfishers, herons, egrets, cormorants, and of course the most popular bird in these parts, the huge and odd-looking shoebill stork. This is a major bucket list item for me on this trip, and I'm filled with excitement when we see this stunning bird that looks almost prehistorical. After spending our first night in Entebbe to recharge our batteries after the long trip, we hit the road, skirting the busy capital Kampala and heading north towards Murchison Falls, the oldest and largest national park in Uganda. This park is named after the spectacular 43-meter falls created by the River Nile, as, with unimaginable force, it pushes 300 cubic meters of water per second through a gap in the rock that is only 7 meters wide. It is impossible to get close to the gorge without getting completely soaked, and man are the views worth it. I actually only start to appreciate the sheer size of the wide Nile from our gorgeous lodge, where it finally sinks in that I'm really in Uganda. The river drains out of Lake Victoria, taking the name of Victoria Nile as it flows through Uganda and reaches Lake Albert shortly after squeezing its way through the gorge at Murchison Falls. From here, it will flow north, before eventually meeting with the Blue Nile in Khartoum, the capital of Sudan. As a geography lover, I marvel at the thought that if I follow this river long enough, I would eventually reach the Mediterranean Sea. Murchison Falls is also the setting of our first safari. And sure enough, minutes into our morning game drive, we begin to experience the magic of the African wilderness. Buffaloes, cobs, giraffes, and in the distance, even a lioness with her cubs. Some of our close encounters with animals are bizarre, like this warthog, or Pumbaa for Lion King fans, fearlessly approaching a jeep begging for some mango. Other encounters simply take my breath away. In the afternoon, we go on a boat safari, which allows us to see countless hippos, elephants, and crocodiles. What an incredible feeling it is to sail on the Nile, surrounded by nature, and to catch one last glimpse of Murchison Falls far in the distance. Our next stop is Kibale National Park. After 2 nights at Murchison spent in a thatched safari tent, surrounded by the sounds of the jungle and, if it wasn't for the mosquito net, by several bugs, it is quite nice to enjoy the walled comfort of our lodge. But there is no time to sleep in, since the following morning we're up early for our chimpanzee tracking. Chimpanzees in Kibale are habituated, which means that they are completely used to having human beings around. Even so, and rightly so, visitors are only allowed to spend 1 hour a day with them. So, with our small group, guided by an experienced ranger, we venture into the rainforest looking for the primates. At first, we only hear their calls high in the treetops and catch the occasional glimpse through the canopy. They sure take their time to come down. But when they do, I can hardly believe my ears as the ranger invites me to follow one of the chimpanzees through the thick vegetation. I now understand why they call this tracking. Watching these creatures is in many ways like watching people. They're so similar to us, both in looks and manners. In fact, they share about 99% of our DNA. This is quite simply an experience that we'll never forget. Worth alone the trip to Uganda. Connected to Kibale by an important migratory corridor is Queen Elizabeth National Park, known for its abundant wildlife and endless savannas. The Lion King vibes here are serious, with the savannah covered in acacia trees stretching as far as the eye can see and the Rwenzori Mountains in the background. Queen Elizabeth National Park is the first place on this trip where I'm reminded of the majestic plains of the Serengeti, one of my first memories of Africa. Nature really puts on a show here, with pristine crater lakes and animals all around. Cruising down the Kazinga Channel in particular is one of my favorite memories of the trip. The only animal that's playing hard to get is the lion. After a sighting in Murchison and another in Queen Elizabeth, both far in the distance, we actually don't get to see any more lions. Not even in Ishasha, the area of Queen Elizabeth closest to the border with Congo, famous for its tree-climbing lions. When we visit, scores of elephants are roaming the area, keeping the mighty cats off the trees. Nature is unpredictable, of course, and even though we don't see any more lions, over the course of the trip we end up getting 4 very close encounters with the most elusive of all animals, the leopard. After a couple of days spent discovering Queen Elizabeth, it's time to head to the Bwindi impenetrable forest, where the mountain gorillas await us. On our way to Bwindi, the elevation increases as we cross an area nicknamed Little Switzerland for its extraordinary mountainous landscapes. Driving conditions in Uganda are notoriously bad, with long stretches of roads still unpaved. Locals call the violent jolting you experience in the car African massage. As bad as the roads are, the views all around are so worth it. From these mountain roads, we get to admire endless tea plantations, colorful towns, and of course Lake Bunyoni, one of the deepest in the world with its many islets. Everywhere you look in rural Uganda, there seems to be someone working the land. And how couldn't there be? With around 70% of Ugandans working in agriculture, it is no surprise that so much of the country's hyper-fertile land is covered in crops. From bananas to coffee, tea and pineapples. Our base for gorilla tracking is actually Lake Mutanda, definitely the most beautiful place we stay at during our trip. Framed by the majestic peaks of the Virunga volcanoes in Congo, this spot is incredibly peaceful. To get to Bwindi, we endure some more early morning African massage, but no pothole is big enough to take away our excitement. we're about to come face to face with the largest ape on Earth. As our guide driver Richard skillfully navigates the steep roads up the mountain, I start to notice the early morning mist enshrouding the valleys below, and I almost choke up. I feel very privileged to be here, and to be about to have a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I have dreamt of this for so many years. We don't need to walk much to reach the habituated family that we're assigned to. After about 20 minutes, there they are. To be in the presence of these animals is humbling. The most surprising thing is the complete and utter lack of interest they show us. They turn to look at us for a second and then go back to their favorite activities: eating, sleeping, or playing with dad. The welfare of animals is the priority. Strict safety protocols are enforced, including mask wearing to protect the gorillas from COVID and other diseases, and like with chimps, there is a limit of 1 hour that we can spend with these primates. I couldn't post a video on Uganda without talking about conservation, which is a priority for a country whose population has grown exponentially over the past few decades. It was just over 5 million in 1950, and it is 47 million today. Human encroachment on animal habitat and the conversion of more and more land to agriculture have had a devastating impact on the country's wildlife and biodiversity. Imagine that in just 3 decades, Uganda has lost 63% of its forest cover. Like many other nations, Uganda has experienced tremendous loss when it comes to nature. One of the most cited examples of this is the white rhino. Due to poaching and habitat loss, by the mid-1980s there were no rhinos left in Uganda. Luckily, conservation efforts are being made. In the early 2000s, 6 rhinos were brought to Ziwa Rhino Sanctuary, located between Kampala and Murchison Falls. Interestingly, 2 of them were donated by Disney's Animal Kingdom in Orlando, Florida, of all places. Today, Ziwa is home to 37 white rhinos, an uplifting success story. Ziwa is a joint initiative of the Uganda government and a private land management firm, but there are also several grassroots projects that strive to protect Uganda's extraordinary natural treasures. The Bigodi Swamp, at the edge of Kibale, is a lush wetland, home to hundreds of species of birds, reptiles, insects, and mammals. They use it as a migratory corridor to move between the southern and the northern parts of the national park. Since 1992, the community-run Kibale Association for Rural and Environmental Development has worked to protect this sanctuary, turning it into a tourist attraction and therefore generating resources that are then reinvested locally. One of the association's activities is teaching people the importance of protecting native species and their habitat, which is the same principle being used in the conservation of the Bugoma forest, east of Lake Albert, threatened by illegal logging and by sprawling sugarcane plantations. During a very interesting community walk, Claudia and I learned a lot about the efforts being made to educate locals to sustainable practices that allow them to thrive while respecting the Bugoma environment. We even give our small contribution by planting a tree. A lot can be said about tourism and its often devastating effects on the environment. But in the case of Uganda, it is a great feeling to know that the money I spend for gorilla tracking, to visit a national park or tour a community, is actually going to help improve the lives of locals and protect the country's natural heritage. Our time in Uganda is nearly over, but not before enjoying a couple more safaris in Lake Mburo, the only park in our itinerary where we get to see zebras. So many of them. The best thing we do in Mburo is a walk in the savannah, a very different feeling to being experiencing wildlife from the comfort of a vehicle, especially when you see the many animal bones and skulls scattered around. On our last day, on our way back to the airport, I think about all the wonderful things we've seen over the past 2 weeks. Uganda is a special place, one that I really encourage you to visit. It is not packed with tourists, its people are very welcoming, and the experiences you get to have here will stay with you for the rest of your life.